Hi, my name's Isaac, and this is a brand new 2022 Ford F-150 Lightning Pro. And today, I'm going to review it for you. Have you guys ever had one of those days where you're on your way to review an F-150 Lightning and then you take a corner too fast and you accidentally spill white ceiling paint all over the back seats of your own truck, and you're already on your way to the review, so you figure, okay, the show must go on. I guess stuff like this just happens sometimes. Can you guess what happened to me 15 minutes ago? Ay, ay, ay. You know, I actually think the dried ceiling paint all over me works well because I look like a working man, and this is a working man's truck. See, I'm rolling with the punches for the analogies, even though my Tacoma's back seats are currently a catastrophe. Before we begin, I'd like to thank Koch 33 Ford for allowing me to borrow this vehicle to review. For all your Ford needs, you can visit their website, koch33ford.net. Ultimately, I know you guys didn't click on this video to hear about my Tacoma paint spill woes. I'll deal with that later. I know you're all shouting,
"Get on with it!" Yes, get on with it!
No, you clicked this video because you want to know more about the F-150 Lightning, specifically this Pro model, which is the base $40,000 variant. Yes, I finally nabbed a truck that is actually the lowest base model. With destination, this clocks in just a hair over $41,000, and I think you're going to be really impressed with what this includes for the price. Starting out here on the front though, you'll have full LED headlights, LED turn signals, and daytime running lights. And there's two styling cues that I want to compliment Ford on up here. One is that on this base model, it actually doesn't have the light bar. I'm not a huge fan of the light bar because it seems like every electric car nowadays is just like light bar, and I don't think that that makes them look unique, and so I like that this lower one doesn't have that. I also like that this trim, and I believe some of the higher trims also have this blacked out grille right here. It's not actually a grille, it's mimicking that. It's the front end of the front trunk, but it makes it look more like a regular F-150, because I think that current F-150 looks really aggressive in styling, and I was worried they would take sort of a Tesla Rivian route where the front end here is just the same color as the body paint, and I think that takes away from some of the styling cues that this current body style has. So I'm thankful that they kept that, even though it's not actually a grille, it does look like an F-150, and so that's pretty neat. You'll have your Ford badge right here, and then you'll also have a button right down here. It's gonna beep, and then it's gonna pop, and then you raise me up. So this is the Mega Power Frunk, Ford's words, not mine. I don't think I ever would have come up with that combination, nor did I ever think I would ever say that combination of words together, yet here we are. You have 400 pounds of payload capacity, and over here, you'll have 4 household power outlets and a USB as well as a USB-C. So tons of power options up here if you want to plug extension cords in, you want to run power tools. I mean, it's endless. You can really plug anything in. Heck, if you want to throw a TV up here with your Xbox, you can do that in the F-150 Lightning, which is an amazing feature. Then you'll also have lights in here, built-in tie-downs, and obviously a button to get out if you accidentally find yourself trapped in here. And I don't blame you if you accidentally did find yourself trapped in here, because this is pretty cozy. You have quite a bit of storage. You just wanted to take a little nap, wouldn't be half bad. So if you accidentally kick this button and lock yourself in, you could kick the button again and get yourself out. Now, if this is not the sharpest base model truck I have ever reviewed, I don't know what is. Moving to the profile here, starting with the wheels and tires, you'll have 275 65R tires around these 18-inch wheels. I love the two-tone design. They could have easily just gone with Steelies for the base model, but they did not do that here. Now, this is technically considered a worker's truck, but I think Ford knows this is going to be a pretty high volume seller for average use, so they gave it some cooler styling cues. Over here you'll have F-150 and it'll say Pro right here. If you tap this, this is also your charge port door where you can plug it in for charging. So that's really nice, kind of blends into the aesthetic, and it does look very similar to a regular F-150 because that's about the area where you would have your badging. Now it's a pretty standard black mirror cap right here, nothing to write home about, though you do have blind spot monitoring, which is nice. You're not really going to see that on the lower trims of the traditional gas engine F-150 unless you go with some bigger packages. Blacked out door handles, so a little cost cutting there, but the black accents work well, in my opinion, to contrast the white color here. And then you'll have your lightning badge here on the side. Love that. The blue accenting with the emboss is really cool. And then you'll have equally as cool taillights, kind of doing this 7 design. Then it'll say F-150 in there. The tailgate is pretty much a regular F-150 tailgate. There's nothing here that's too terribly different. You'll have parking sensors down here on your bumper, which is also blacked out. And you'll have your trailering down here. Now trailering does take a huge hit compared to a regular F-150. Obviously you still can tow with it, but bear that in mind that this isn't necessarily a huge towing vehicle. Down here you'll have your American flag badge with the little lightning logo, and then you'll have a backup camera incorporated into the tailgate. No dampening on the tailgate, but you do have some tie downs in here. Looks like this was parked under a tree for a bit. You will get 2 more household power outlets back here. Oh my word. So you got 4 up front, 2 here, and then you'll also have a button right there for power, which is really nice. No spray and bed liner on this particular one, though that is an option. Let's take a look inside. Now, stepping inside, you can definitely tell where they've begun to cost cut, but strangely, they've included some really amazing features in here too. But the first sign of this being the base model is you'll get vinyl seats, which are honestly pretty comfortable. Definitely not as comfortable as cloth or leather, but they're not the worst in the world. They have nice bolstering, though they pretty much only have back support and front and back sliding capabilities, no lumbar or anything like that. And then you'll have just rubber floors, pretty basic, but again, you spill anything, like paint, it would be pretty easy to clean up in here. And then the steering wheel is polyurethane, so not leather. It's kind of more rubbery material, and it definitely does not feel as premium, but it is still a nice offering overall, and it does feel like an F-150 in here. As I mentioned getting in, there are some features that are really high scale, like this touchscreen. Normally, this is reserved for the top of the top F-150s on the traditional gas engines, but here you get it in the base model, which is really impressive. And you have a lot of different options here. One I really like is Pro Power on board. So you'll have the outlets in the front, you'll have the outlets in your back, and then you also do get one more household power outlet in here for 7 total on the truck, which is just fantastic. Never mind, hold on, I just checked. There's 8. There's one down here too. So 8 total household power outlets on this truck. That's really impressive. And then on navigation, you can see right here that if we pull this up, it's going to tell us where the closest charging stations are that are compatible with the F-150. This is the 98 kilowatt base model battery that you can get with this. That goes for about 230 miles of range, which isn't great. You know, the range takes a hit with this base model, so does the towing, but still pretty impressive that Ford was able to do this, and I'm sure over time they'll just be able to develop better batteries that have better towing and better range. There is an available 300-mile range battery. I believe they just announced it's available for this base model, but for the most part, it's going to be on the higher trims of this truck. 300, still not great, but it's not horrific. Down here, you'll have standard F-150 climate controls and your volume knobs, as well as a USB and USB-C. And then this does have the power folding shifter, which is really nice. It doesn't have the fold over armrest, which would have been cooler, but you could still lay a laptop down here, something like that. Pretty convenient, and I like to see that because, again, like if you were to go with a regular gas engine F-150, you'd have to get a pretty well-equipped XLT or a Lariat to get this folding down shifter right here, but you get it on this base model. So that's really impressive. 2 cup holders right there. Another very impressive thing is you get the fully digital gauge cluster screen, which gives you obviously your remaining range, what drive mode you're in, and it tells us the vehicle is on, because if I hit the button here, we're off, and it gives me that warning to check the rear seats. But when I turn it on, I get my logo, it gives me my bing bing, it says ready, but no engine noise, obviously, since this is electric. So definitely takes some getting used to. It's kind of ominous not hearing the engine start up. So that definitely would be something that you'd have to get used to if you're getting one of these. Down here, you'll have your standard F-150 lighting controls and an electronic parking brake. And then you also do have a button to open that mega power frunk in the front end here from here, and then we can also close that. So tap the button again, and it will go down. Then here on the door, you'll have your basic controls for your mirrors and your windows. Nice that the front 2 are 1 touch down and 1 touch up automatic. That's a really neat touch, pun intended, as well on this. The door panel, rubber, hard touch plastic, not very comfortable. Going to be straight up, not a comfortable door handle, or door trim piece, I should say. But again, there is the cost cutting in certain areas. I am wildly impressed that this $40,000 truck is as nice as it is with the electronic capabilities for this price tag. I think it's so cool, and the features in here definitely stand out. You have rear seat legroom in here for days. I mean, it is crazy. I'm 5'9", and I probably have 7 or 8 inches. And then when it comes to headroom, yeah, I probably have about 5 or 6 inches of headroom. So that's really nice. And then down here, you'll have 2 climate controls, a 12-volt outlet, the aforementioned household outlet, and a USB and USB-C. So no lack of charging capabilities back here. And like I said, the vinyl seats are pretty comfortable back here as well. They're very squishy, which I actually like. You kind of sink into them very nicely. Definitely not uncomfortable. And then there is no sliding window back here on the base model. And just like a regular F-150, you can pull this latch and you will get a completely flush load floor. That works on both sides here. Very impressive back seats. Let's take this thing for a spin. Driving the F-150 Lightning. This has not had its full vehicle inspection yet, so I cannot take it out on the road, but Koch 33 has a lot of on-property roads that I can drive it, so I think we're going to be able to get a good feel for the acceleration and the braking and everything on here, and that's what's really most important. All right, so we're going to open it up here in just a second. Let's see how this thing responds. Oh my word! Oh, it just throws you back. Now, obviously, I guess I expected that. It's like a Tesla in that regard, but I've never been in a vehicle this big with this much instantaneous response. Like just boom, like see, like oh my word. It throws you back. And the brakes are pretty good, little touchy, but I guess I should expect that because the accelerator's a little touchy too. You know, you really got to get into the groove of driving this normally, because the thing is, getting into reviewing these electric vehicles, I'm not used to this. When I just tap the accelerator. You hear the tire squeal. I just tap the accelerator. Boom, boom. I'm just barely tapping it. Instantaneous torque response. I'm hoping that eventually they do get better with the range and the payload and the towing, and I'm sure that they will as batteries become smaller and easier to incorporate into things. This and the Rivian, which I'm hoping to review soon, should prove a next step in the evolution of electric vehicles. So that is going to conclude my review of the F-150 Lightning Pro. I really hope you enjoyed. Now, before I leave, I'd like to read a section of scripture for you guys. My hope is that I can point people to a closer relationship with God if they know Him already, and if you don't have a relationship with Him, I'm hoping that these sections of scripture I read can point you towards a desire to do that. And so, Normally, I would film this with the truck if you've been watching my channel for a while, but I wanted to gain a little bit more context behind the passages I want to read today before I read them, because I think context is really important. And so I decided to film this a little bit later. Today I'm going to be reading from 2 Samuel 6. And the background is that David is king of Israel, and they've lost the Ark of the Covenant. Remember from Indiana Jones, that's a real thing. And so they've lost it, and their enemy, the Philistines, have it. God gives the Philistines into the hands of David. They have victory over them, and they get the ark back. And David is thrilled, so thrilled that as he returns to Israel, he is dancing in the streets, and he's just joyously praising the Lord. Now his wife, the daughter of the previous king, sees him doing this and is none too pleased. We're going to pick up in verse 20. And David returned to bless his household. But Michal, the daughter of Saul, came out to meet David and said, "How the king of Israel honored himself today, uncovering himself today, but before the eyes of his female servants, as one of the vulgar fellows shamelessly uncovers himself." Now, there's definitely sarcasm here, and it's talking about uncovering himself, so like, what is he, exposing himself? Well, it talks about him being dressed in a linen ephod in an earlier verse, and so this seems to be sarcasm. She just seems to have kind of a hardened heart. She's a princess. She knows about all this prim and proper stuff, and him dancing carelessly, in her eyes, through the streets just doesn't really jive with what she thinks is proper for a king. And so I think she's kind of overblowing what he's doing, and he was dressed as he danced through the streets. Picking up here in verse 21. And David said to Michal, "It was before the Lord who chose me above your father and above all his house to appoint me as prince over Israel, the people of the Lord. And I will celebrate before the Lord. I will make myself yet more contemptible than this." I like in other translations it says, "I will become more undignified than this." It says contemptible here, but he's willing to embarrass himself in the eyes of people if it means bringing glory to God. "I will be abased in your eyes, but by the female servants of whom you have spoken, by them I shall be held in honor." So David is standing his ground in worshiping God, and even if that might look strange to people around us, we should still absolutely worship God, and we have to become more undignified, so be it. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up this video. Take care.